Dear ICSE students, in today's session, I am going to discuss two reference to the context passages. One from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and the other from the poem Daffodils. I have prepared this worksheet strictly in accordance with the ICSE 2023 updated question pattern. This is a reference to the context passage, and now let me just read the questions and answers one by one. Question number 1. Name the poem and the poet. Bring out the significance of but in the first line of the extract. Let me just refer to the extract once again. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. What is the significance of but in the first line of the extract? So 3 marks. You will get 4 questions carrying 3 marks each. 4 into 3 is equal to 12, and the last question will carry 4 marks. So a total of 16 marks for each passage. Name the poem and the poet. In this subpart, there are 2 answers to be provided, the name of the poem and also the name of the poet. The answer now. The name of the poem is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and the poet is Maya Angelou. Here you will either underline the name of the text or you will put the title within quotes. The next subpart. Bring out the significance of but in the first line of the extract. The poet creates contrasting images of how a free bird and a caged bird live their lives. What is the most important word here? Contrasting images. This expression is the most important expression here. Hence, she uses but in the first line of the extract to bring out this contrast. You must write brief answers, but you must mention all the key words and expressions in your to-the-point answers. Question number 2. What is the meaning of grave of dreams? Mention any one condition of the bird as presented in the extract. According to this new pattern, you will get word meanings. You will have to explain words or expressions, and there will be a question beginning with mention. Mention any 2 aspects, mention any 1 aspect, and here I have asked you to write about any one condition of the bird as presented in the extract. In this extract we have the caged bird, so you will have to mention any one of the condition of the caged bird. Now, the answer, the expression the grave of dreams is associated with the image of death or an end. This is the meaning. This is associated with death or an end. The caged bird knows that he is not flying in the sky and he is a captive. His dreams of flying in a free firmament, that is sky, is futile and dead. Thus, he stands on the grave of dreams. So this is the meaning of the grave of dreams. Now, the next subpart. Mention any one condition of the bird as presented in the extract. His wings are clipped and feet are tied. Just one condition, any one condition of your choice. Question number 3, again carrying 3 marks. Explain. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. The caged bird has lost all hopes of freedom. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. That is, he cries as someone having a bad dream. The use of alliteration. There is a figure of speech here. Shadow, shouts, scream, alliteration, and I have mentioned that clearly in the answer. The use of alliteration shows his pain and anguish. This is how you must explain. If you are asked to explain something, explain like this. This answer is brief, to the point, yet this answer consists of all the key words and expressions. Question number 4 now. What is the significance of the song of the caged bird? Describe the song of the bird. So here I have incorporated, since this is a practice worksheet, I have incorporated these two questions together. The caged bird chooses to sing as this is the only freedom available to him that he can enjoy without any restriction. There is hope in this song, S-O-N-G, yet it is born from a place of deep pain. This is the significance of the song of the caged bird. The song is the only freedom available to the bird. And now describe the song of the bird. The second subpart. And another important thing, always change paragraphs for different subparts. Don't write in a single paragraph. Many of you make this mistake, this silly mistake of writing in a single paragraph. Always change paragraphs. Now the description of the song. The bird has a wavering voice. He is singing of freedom. There is fear in his voice, and he sings of things he does not know, of things unknown. His voice can be heard from distant places on hills where it inspires others to dream of freedom. You can either quote from the text or you can write in your own words, provided that you mention all the key words and expressions in your answer. The examiner will give a tick. He or she will look for the key elements, and if you miss out any key element, then automatically marks will be deducted. So pay attention, read the text thoroughly. How is the life of the free bird different from that of the caged bird? Now here I have discussed this in detail. You will have to edit the answer and frame your own answer. I have incorporated once again for practice two important questions, and therefore the length is tight. This is a slightly lengthy answer. The free bird. How is the life of the free bird different? So caged bird versus the free bird. The free bird flies on the wind as if floating downstream until the wind current shifts, and the free bird dips its wings in the orange sunlight. On the other hand, now since this is a comparison question, I have specifically used the expression on the other hand. You may also use but or while in order to highlight the difference between the two birds. On the other hand, the caged bird cannot fly and his feet are tied together and his wings are clipped. So I'll mention two differences here because this question carries 4 marks and there are 2 subparts. I will write accordingly. So the first difference is limitless freedom versus limited mobility. You may also use these words in your answer, in your comparison. The next one, the free bird thinks about another breeze, says he owns the sky, while the caged bird stands on the grave of his own dead dreams. Again, sense of entitlement, free bird. He says the sky belongs to him versus captivity. The caged bird is now standing on the grave of his own dreams, shattering of his dreams. So this is the comparison. Now, what is the purpose of this contrast? Let's see. The contrast shows the theme of freedom versus enslavement to convey the pain of oppression faced by black people in the United States. I am referring to oppression and racism prevalent in the United States. So dear students, this is how you are supposed to answer the questions. Who is the I referred to in the extract? I saw I at a glance. And what did he see where? 3 subparts in one single question, 3 marks. The word I refers to the poet William Wordsworth. Finished. What did he see? He saw a host of golden daffodils. Again finished. Where? He saw them growing beside the lake under the trees. Now look students, this is so easy. Read the text and answer accordingly. Don't beat around the bush. Answer to the point. What is the Milky Way? Why does the poet refer to the Milky Way? 3 marks. The Milky Way is a galaxy. I know only this much, so I'll write only this much. I'll not beat around the bush. Why does the poet refer to the Milky Way? The flowers are compared to the stars in the Milky Way. The word compared is very important. He uses this simile, the figure of speech. Now, in this poem, you must go through all the figures of speech and you must use them in your answer if needed. He uses this simile to say that just as the stars in the Milky Way stretch in a never-ending line across the sky, similarly, the daffodils seem to stretch in a never-ending line along the banks of the lake. This is the simile and this is the explanation of that simile. Question 3 again, explanation. Learn how to write explanations. You will get word meanings. You will be asked to explain expressions or lines from the extract according to the new pattern. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The figure of speech employed in the quoted lines is hyperbole for the sake of emphasis. What is hyperbole? Hyperbole is exaggeration. When you speak too much about something for the sake of emphasis. I'm sure your teachers have already told you about the use of exaggeration or hyperbole in these lines. It seems that the poet was under an illusion that he was watching 10,000 daffodils swaying their heads in a sprightly dance. The daffodils have been personified as fluttering and dancing along the riverside. So there is another figure of speech here, personification. Both these figures of speech must be mentioned in your answer if you are asked to explain these two lines. So I hope you have already gone through this answer. I'm moving on to the next question. Now the mention question. Mention any other instance in the poem where the poet uses the figure of speech simile. What does it show? 3 marks. The poet compares himself to a cloud in the sky, the very first line. Just as a solitary cloud moves about in the sky without any particular destination, similarly, the poet was wandering along all alone in the place where the daffodils were blooming. So this is the explanation. The poet was, now what does this show? The poet was roaming around aimlessly and was lonely. In this state of mind, the sight of the daffodils, the sight of the beautiful daffodils mesmerized him and filled him with a wealth of rich experiences. During this phase, when he was all alone, when he was aimless, he was attracted towards the host of golden daffodils. And the last one, 4 marks. Describe in detail what happens when the poet is in a pensive mood. Whenever the poet is in a pensive mood, the daffodils flash upon his inner eye, that is his imagination. The word imagination must be there in your answer. The daffodils have become an everlasting memory for the poet. Another very significant expression, everlasting memory. Whenever he is alone, whenever he is lonely, so he calls it a bliss of solitude. His heart fills with pleasure and his mind dances with the dancing daffodils. So learn this answer from here directly.